we get to forms? Yep. So let's go to a fresh form here. Forms. And just like all the others, we're just going to start with a blank.
We're in forms right now. Are you in forms?
All right. So here's our form. Excuse me. And here's the kind of the basic anatomy of a Google form if you're not familiar with it. Along the top up here, we have a couple of icons. This is how we do the add-ons, this little puzzle piece here for forms. This is color palette. This is preview, just like in Sites. Forms has the same concept as Sites. It has to get published before it can be viewed. Yes?
That. We don't have. Yeah, I was gonna say that little puzzle. We don't.
If you click on the 3 dots,
Yes.
it's under there.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. Once you add an add-on, then yeah, you have to click on the 3
There's
dots.
3 dots.
Thank you.
And then it's,
Preview, and then there's gear, and then there's send. And then the 3 dots, this is in Google Forms, how we add collaborators in Google Forms, is under the 3 dots. All right. So the task here, oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to get to the task yet. This main page are our questions. So we give the form a title, and then we just start adding the questions underneath here. And by default, it's going to be multiple choice, and we can just start adding our questions here. To add new questions, we click on the circle with the plus. So title, and then we just add the questions down below. We have a choice of what kinds of questions we want to make them, and we can add new questions by the circle and the plus. There's this responses tab here, and this is showing us data about responses. And so, and we'll talk about this in 1 second, but this is how we link it to a spreadsheet under responses. We'll come back to that. But first, our task. So it says create a 2-question quiz that is accessible from the outside and make the users anonymous. That's a lot there. So anybody kind of take a guess where we would start this? The gear? Yeah, the gear, which is settings, just like in Gmail, right? Right? Kind of the universal settings sign. And the task is that is accessible from the outside and make the users anonymous. So this is a little bit of that language game that we were talking about earlier. And this is it's kind of a simultaneous thing. Don't try to overthink it, but while also paying attention to the language. Because don't drive yourself too crazy with this. So make it anonymous, right? So what's the first option there? Right. So if we're going to click, well, actually, we'll get to that in 1 second. If we're going to make it anonymous, do we want to collect email addresses? No. So we're going to, in this case, we're going to leave this unchecked. And then the second thing was, the language was make accessible from the outside. This says what? Restricted to this domain. So if we uncheck that, we've just opened this up to the outside, right? And by virtue of not checking collect email addresses, we're making it anonymous. So we've accomplished that first task, right? And just again, pay attention to the language when you get this, because they may say, restricted to the domain, or make sure it's restricted to the domain, and just make sure that it's checked, or that you're kind of going in here and looking at it. They may say limited to 1 response. You see right here pretty plainly limited to 1 response. They may say don't allow students to edit it after they submit it. Well, then you would keep this unchecked. So I'm going to uncheck restrict, click save. I've accomplished goal 1 up here. I've made it accessible from the outside, and I've made it anonymous. Now it says save the responses to a spreadsheet. Cool. So we go to our form, responses, and this little icon here, create the spreadsheet. This is where we're going to link it to a spreadsheet. Now, chances are you'll have titled this form, and I'm just going to make up a name here before you do this. And if you haven't, I would, because when you do this, create the spreadsheet, it's going to take the name of the form instead of saying entitled. So we're going to create a new spreadsheet as a response destination. Click create. Now it opens up the spreadsheet, and we don't have really any other questions here, but you can see that it's going to timestamp, and then our questions will be in the columns and the answers will be individual rows. So, so that's our spreadsheet that's going to host the data. Let's look at our next task. Install the add-on Flubberoo in Sheets and then use Flubberoo to grade the quiz. So, go back and let me open this up. How do you think we install an add-on in Sheets?
Add-ons, yeah.
Yeah. Oop, there's Flubberoo. All right, so we're going to click plus and free. I mean, we can search for it. It happens to be there. I'm just going to click on it. And it's the same install process as Docs to Forms. You know, this is going to want to read all my data. You know, have at it, Flubberoo. Now, boo, ba-doo, boo, boo. So the Flubberoo, if we go up here, sorry, just let me get this all staged. This is one of those things that I personally like to try to leverage your help, and Flubberoo has a pretty good help thing. So if I click on Flubberoo and help, and it says help for Flubberoo, I click learn more, and it pops open this site, and they have a user guide, and that user guide looks like this. And it walks you through the Google form and how to create a Google form, and you know, how to do it, and then, you know, grade it, and so forth. So let's let me just show you this, because I think that this could be pretty helpful.
Assignment is a Google form. When I've submitted answers to submissions were automatically inserted into the destination spreadsheet shown here.